Good morning, everyone. Thank you for watching today's live, joining me here or watching later on replay. I want to talk about attunement and what that means and how it helps us regulate during really stressful times where we feel generally overwhelmed and in that place of just not really being able to step forwards into action, into making decisions, into any form of growing and expressing life. Those times where every 5 minutes you just want to, or you maybe even say it out loud, I need a holiday. As usually we say that usually when we also know that that holiday is not going to happen anytime soon for whatever reason. And the reason I want to explore this topic, I haven't really prepared it all that much, but I've just come back from Casa Limoeiro here in Portugal, just north of Lisbon, running the Awakening Growth retreat together with my dear friends and colleagues, Kirsten and Tiago. And we had a wonderful, wonderful time. And during one of the sessions that actually Kirsten was leading, we went out into nature and we went for a beautiful walk into the vineyards, and we sat down on the earth, actual earth, for some contemplation and reflection and a meditation. And I was sitting there, and suddenly there was this feeling that was very familiar in me, and I realized that I hadn't had it for a very long time during really most of the pandemic. And it was this feeling of, it's a feeling that actually there aren't really any words to describe it, so I'm going to have to talk around it. A feeling of belonging, a feeling of being in resonance, of being in harmony, and that's kind of within as well as with all of the world around. It's very peaceful. It's somewhere in the heart. It's somewhere in the heart space. There is a stillness to it, a stillness that also can't really be grasped or produced or obtained. It's that stillness within that we all have, but struggle to access at the best of times. And I realized one of the effects that the pandemic had on me. It had, through all of its circumstances and whatever, kind of cut me off from feeling that way of, and so here is how I define attunement, that feeling as feeling attuned, in harmony. And I was it was just that moment that I realized I hadn't realized it quite so clearly. I had, to a degree, of course, you observe what's going on, and you can sometimes put your finger on it, sometimes not. But it was only when I had returned back to feeling that way that I had realized that it had been missing in my life and in me, in my being. And I was absolutely grateful. I felt also at that moment to be back in that place. I also felt quite sad in a way, also, that I had let it get to that place in a way. And I was like, this is not okay to not have any attunement and to not be attuned. It's just not. This is not okay. And you know what it comes down to? I can blame the pandemic, until it comes come home, but it actually really comes down to doing the practice, to self-care, to nourish my being on all necessary levels, to maintain this level of health that is in full harmony. In my mind, there is health in our full body, being, system, in our energy, in our emotions, everywhere. In all we are, there is health when things are in harmony with one another, because we are beings of relation. We simply are. Nothing inside of us, and I've talked about this many times before, nothing inside of us works in isolation. Literally, you can't take any part of us out and think it's just sort of going to continue there. No. Every part within us works in relation with the rest of us, as well as the world around us. We are in this continuous relation at all times. And when that is jarred, when that is blocked, when that goes into dissonance rather than being in harmony, rather than being attuned, then health is challenged and issues begin to arise, and disease begins to arise. And it comes down to maintaining that and doing the practice. And it was really beautiful at the retreat on the last day, doing a little check-in with the group, who was just wonderful, to observe for a moment how everybody felt different to when they first arrived, and the things people were saying. It was really absolutely extraordinary. After only like 3 days being out there doing all of this nourishing work for ourselves, it went all the way from kind of a chronic pain that somebody had been experiencing for the last 2 years that disappeared, to people noticing how they're engaging with other people completely differently, to really reconnecting with kind of trust in life, and it was wonderful. And I was like, so, but how come? Like, what did we do in these 3 days that was so special to create this big shift? And to me, it was really that, the focus of that retreat was nourishment on all levels, through the practices, through learning, through study, through nature, through the amazing food, through the human interaction that we finally had again with each other, through contact, through listening. And I think it just brought us all slightly more into harmony again with this vital life force that is all within and all around, that all living things, systems have this expression of life. And we were just bringing ourselves back a little bit more into harmony rather than in kind of being in this dissonance. And even just a little adjustment back towards harmony can already make a huge change and have a big impact. And of course, it always depends a little bit on where we're at any given moment in time, that it might require a little bit more work, might require a little bit more time, it might require all sorts of things to create a bigger shift. But once we're starting to set this in motion, there is also a little bit of a ripple effect. Kirsten was quoting this at one point during the retreat, that like a single toe can make a ripple, And that's really important to remember. We don't need to do everything and all of it and achieve all of it. We don't need to achieve anything. We don't need to do all of it all at the same time and go, into this kind of overdrive. No, it's kind of all of the little things. And so nourishment, I think, is just such a important practice to embrace. I feel like, especially right now, I mean, like at all times really, but especially right now, where I'm observing in myself, but also in many people around us, and my clients, my students, and well, just anyone really generally, observing this kind of exhaustion and stuckness, a stagnation. I'm really noticing kind of a sort of people not being quite ready to, there is excitement depending on where the pandemic is at in terms of where they're living, but it just sort of feels like people haven't quite got the same agency that they used to have, that ability to step into action, to make choices, to have the freedom to make these choices, decisions, to move, to act, to manifest, to commit, all of these things that kind of to me mean agency. And an agency comes from a place where we are in more stillness, in a more peaceful place, in attunement within as well as without. It is that place from where we can really see things for what they really are, where we have a more truthful perception of things, where there's less filtering happening for all sorts of kind of stories that are going on. It's that place from where we actually have access to our intuition, to our inner wisdom. It's a quieter place, and I think we all know that place. It's that quieter place from where we then know there is an infinite amount of choice and possibility and potential, and it's from that place that we can then move and express, live our life to the fullest. And I think, the challenges of the last, that's almost a year and a half or so, has had real impact on that agency in us. And because I think it's just sort of thrown us out of harmony. That's the words I'm choosing. You could also explain that all on a neurological level, or you couldn't explain it with the words of the yoga philosophy, or whatever really. But anyway, that's the words I'm choosing right now. It's kind of what's resonating with me. And so, talking to those of you who are yoga teachers, therapists, movement facilitators, Thai massage practitioners, obviously, this kind of nourishment is something that maybe we can really offer right now also to our community, to support people finding back to harmony and to that place where they can step back into their growth. What can we do? What can we offer? First of all, we could talk to it like I'm doing here. You could write about it. You could send it out in your newsletter. I think just even understanding this and this kind of recognition of what might be happening inside, I think is really, really powerful actually as part of the healing process, and understanding like, okay, I recognize this, and it's okay, because it's just simply how my body adapts and my nervous system adapts, and how I'm maneuvering the challenges, and it's okay. And now I need to begin my practice to also regulate that again. So I feel like the knowledge of what's actually happening in these challenging times is actually a really important aspect of the healing process. Nourishment is actually a term that we do use in trauma-informed work and trauma-sensitive yoga. We do it to help regulate the nervous system. This kind of really choosing very nourishing practices, helping to regulate the nervous system back to that place of feeling really self and not safe as well, safe. And because only when we are feeling safe and comfortable, when there is no threat in our environment, the body can begin to heal. It's about helping our body and our system to perceive sensations for what they really are again, to maybe regulate some of the oversensitivities that we might have developed in that time, and to understand that there is no threat in those. And that can happen through movement, understanding and perceiving movement in a healthier, cohesive way. It could be through touch, of course. So that's why I feel like all of the modalities of with healing hands are so powerful at these times. And touch you can even bring in, so if you're not a body worker, touch you can bring in even, I think, in your practices, whatever other kind of movement practice. We could include like a self-massage, especially around the face. That feels really nourishing. And it's also to do with the fact that our soul nerve, the vagus nerve, that is in charge of all of this regulation, is going to the face and is also in charge of this kind of how we are relating and expressing ourselves through our voice, through facial expressions with the world around us. So we're kind of addressing that directly by doing a little face massage, and you can go creative with that. I can show you all this, but we could also, we could work that around to the neck, to the shoulders. All of this is kind of like a stress, tension area. We can release some of that. The suboccipital, I spoke to that before. The suboccipital tension that most of us carry around might even impinge on the vagus nerve. So freeing that up will be really helpful to give the nervous system a little bit of a chance of a reset. What else? Like in terms of touch that we can bring into classes, into our practices, is squeezing arms, for example. That's something very grounding, very kind of giving a sense of safety. I quite also like it. It's a little bit more invigorating and bringing a little bit more vitality and flow back, doing some patting all around the body, literally the legs, front, back, arms. You can even do that on the face. You can also do some tapping. It doesn't need to be massaging. It can be around the head. You can go along the meridians if that is the base of your knowledge. Like hugging motions, have one up, one down, or across. I actually combine this with kind of freeing the thoracic area a little bit through creating a rotation through that. So there's actually quite a few. You can get really creative with this and look at, what particular moves, asanas, techniques you've got in your toolbox, and that all speak to this aspect of touch, self-care, nourishment. There's so much, I am quite sure, in your toolbox already. These are just some ideas to get you going. Also, something that I really like working with is just waking the breath. I am a fan of keeping that also, how do I say, freestyle. Also, especially I think at times where there's quite a bit of overwhelm in us in the first place, I think it's helpful to be mindful of the intensity of your breathing exercises and to rein them right back, to make them really accessible, easier to manage in shorter sequences, etc. So not quite so intense that people just go, oh. We can work up towards that if you want to work with real traditional pranayamas that can be so powerful. But there's also so many ways of adapting those and making them a lot more gentle, a lot more natural, just bringing people slowly back to a healthy, full, diaphragmatic breath. And there's also a kind of vitality aspect to that, of just kind of waking things up a little bit and invigorating the body, and keeping it freestyle. So there is also choice. So something that is really nourishing is having choice, that you can decide, like, for yourself, that you have options. They are or equal options. So that's something that those of you who are teaching yoga might want to consider in terms of your verbal cueing also, and how you are offering different options and keeping them really neutral with a simple word or, rather than making them all conditional, as in, if you want more and if you want to go deeper and if that's hurting or blah blah blah, do this, that, da da da. Why not just simply offer all of the choices and options with the word or? That's a simple, it's not simple, it's not an easy one to remember and to actually do, but it's just a very small adjustment that you could possibly offer right now, that will bring a little bit more nourishment, just because it offers choice. And if you go back to what I was starting off with and talking about agency, that is all about having choice. So we're actually fostering that particular aspect of coming back into agency, offering choices so people can make choices. So things that you're offering are more invitational, and people can actually notice what feels good for them. And that is also going back to a point that I already said, is also helping and supporting people really perceiving sensations for what they really are more fully and more coherence again. So really fostering the kind of noticing and observing and redeveloping awareness, which overcomes maybe some of the dissociation that we've been suffering over this challenging time. And that in turn will bring us also, again, slightly more back into tune, into harmony. What else could we do? I think there's also like a point in, kind of vitalizing, mobilizing, removing stagnation. Everything is just a little bit dull, and to bring a little bit of movement back, something joyful, laughter, dancing, jumping, I don't know, whatever might bring joy, but actually bringing the body back into motion, that can also be really nourishing in some way. And if we bring that back to Thai massage, or any body work really, where we work with touch, so maybe we're really creating a little bit more of a flow. Maybe we're going to use a little bit more movement, but also that moment of stillness for integration, where we're nourishing the peaceful feeling where we can finally exhale again. But maybe, at the same time, also really bringing our attention to vitalizing the organism. I think it's just so rich in what we can offer right now through body work, and that is something that I am noticing at my studio that the therapy space is quite busy, because it really seems like people are really longing for touch right now, and for this kind of work, which is great to see. So yeah, it's like, it's not about, to me, this is not about I don't know, like using the currently overwhelming times as a kind of marketing trick or something to sell people a Thai massage or yoga class, or whatever. It's more, for me, it's really about how we can be of service to our community and our clients and our students, offering this in this context, and saying, hey, like, we need to nourish ourselves right now. We need to come back into harmony. So let's try this, or how about this, and actually also giving people tools that they can do by themselves. That's really empowering. So yeah, I just think we have an opportunity to support our community with these nourishing practices right now. So when I say attunement, or what might happen through, this reset that might happen in our system, in our being, through nourishing practices, is to do with kind of entering back into the organic, natural rhythms that we have, that are the expression of life. So life is movement. So you could say that if something doesn't move anymore, it's not alive anymore, it's dead. So where there is movement, there is life. Life expresses itself in movement. And that happens in all sorts of different rhythms that we have going on. So the simple ones that we all can perceive is the breath. We breathe in a particular rhythm. It's our heartbeat, our pulse. It's the rhythm that all of the fluids get moved around the body, pumped around the body. It's even this kind of movement that happens in some kind of rhythmic engagement. There is a rhythm in our craniosacral system, in the movement of the cerebral spinal fluid going up and down the spine and around the brain. And that gets pumped through this rhythmic motion in the different bones of the skull. And then there's kind of this sort of pumping suction effect that happens at a particular tide. It takes a certain cycle. And there's actually this other expansion and retraction happening in our living organism that we don't quite know yet what that really is, but it's been called the breath of life. And in the yoga philosophy, we'd call that our vital life force, the prana. It's this, when we're born, the first thing, it's we take a deep breath. And when we die, we take the last breath. And this breath of life, it's a very slow, very, very, very slow pulsating movement. It takes about 50 seconds or so for expansion, 50 seconds to retract. It's everywhere in nature. Every living system has this breath of life. It's in a multiple of that is the speed of the light it takes from the sun to the speed the light takes to reach from the sun to the earth. Thank goodness, English. Sorry. Everything works in a rhythm and a cycle. We have seasons. We have a sleep rhythm. We have sleep and wakefulness. We have digestion that works in a particular rhythm and cycle. Trees grow up from a seed and develop fruit, and they fall to the earth, they compost and nourish the ground for a new tree. We have the tides of the ocean. just everything that is a living system has a rhythm, a pulsation, an expansion and retraction. And this is what I mean with being attuned. It's being in harmony with all of these beautiful rhythms within and without. And as soon as that gets disturbed, jarred, blocked, zigzagged, we go into dissonance. There is no resonance anymore. It goes into disharmony. It sounds funny. It feels funny. It gets edgy. It gets jarry. And eventually that leads to disease. That is what challenges our health. When we're in full harmony and attunement with all of these rhythms that is in nature, that is life, then that means that everything is healthy and we are in full health. And then we can express life fully. We can show up fully to our own party. And yes, in fairness, I've been speaking about this over the weekend as well, yes, some circumstances are not as great for some people as for others. Some people might, we're all born into different countries, into different cultures. We might have some genetic disposition to begin with. Yes, all of that, and yes, I acknowledge that. And the information, the true essence, the breath of life is the same for all of it. It is one. This is what connects us, being one with all that is around, with nature. And through our practice, we can try anyway to maintain health. That is actually really what I feel is the primary purpose of all of these practices that we do, whether it's yoga or bodywork or qigong or whatever. It's the maintenance of this attunement, the maintenance of health. And we can all do that. We show up. And when I was sitting there on the ground in that vineyard on Saturday, feeling the attunement to the nature around me, I realized that maybe I didn't really do my bit as well as I could have over the last year to maintain that attunement. Yeah. And the other thing about our practices is kind of about finding a way of being in this world. I said earlier, we are beings of relation. And as we are beings of relation in this world, our practice will help us to be in this world without doing any harm to ourselves or others. And yet, and still being able to be in action and manifestation and showing up and living life and in achievement of what we want to achieve. So still being able to be in action and growth at the same time. I like this way of thinking about the yoga. I have that from Peter Blackaby, one of my teachers, and I thought, oh yeah, I like that. So anyway, that's today's talk. Thank you so much. for listening. Any questions, comments, observations, thoughts, disagreements, whatever it might be, I'd love to hear from you. Please comment below the video wherever you are watching this, on Facebook or Instagram or YouTube. I would love to be able to announce the next retreat already, but things are still all a bit up in the air schedule-wise, as is for all of us. But I know I shall be getting back to Casa de Muero in July for a Thai massage training. That's an advanced training treating back pain, so kind of Thai massage for healthy backs, it's called. So if you've done some training before and feel like you also could do with a week of attuning, this week is not only meant as a training to fill your toolbox, it's also very much meant as a week for ourselves. This is actually why I really do most of my trainings in this retreat format, because we need to, as practitioners and therapists and teachers, we need to do the work on ourselves primarily. And we tend to forget, I think, too much. And you know, we need to spend time for our own healing just as much. And I feel when I go and do training myself as a participant somewhere, this is an aspect that I appreciate almost like more than what I learn, is that nourishment of being away somewhere, being out in nature, having beautiful food, doing the practice, getting up early, starting with yoga, starting on the mat, having time to breathe, all of that. So yeah, that's happening from the 12th to the 18th of July. I will post the link below if anyone wants to join. Otherwise, enjoy the rest of your week. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you hopefully again here next week. Take care, everyone.